No, I'm not going to say smile, you're on candid camera, because you're not. But we're looking at a fish that is fairly common in Michigan. This is a state record. You're going to hear all about it in just 1 minute because it's Thursday night, time for Michigan Outdoors.
From the rugged shore and woodlands of the north, its history of copper mines and iron ore, the Great Lakes fisheries. To the farmlands of the southern counties, we'll look around again at all that waits the sportsman in the state of Michigan.
This is a rather sinister-looking fish. Do you know what it is? Well, Riley Sumner and Ken Bauer from Chelsea speared this state record. Ned Fogel, you're from the DNR Fisheries Division, our fishing expert. What is it?
This is a longnose gar.
Longnose gar. Some people might call it maybe an alligator gar or a gar pike.
Well, it's not an alligator gar, which is a much larger fish, and it's not a gar pike. It's no relation to the pike at all. This is a gar.
It looks like a pike, though, and it does look like an alligator, too. A very sinister-looking fish. You fellas took this fish spearing it.
Right.
And not too many are caught on hook and line, are they, Ned?
No, they're very difficult to catch on hook and line. They're a sneaky snatcher of the bait.
Right, and you can see with their bony mouth here, there's hardly anything you
No,
can...
it's very, very difficult to get a hook to penetrate. That you can, but it's difficult.
Okay, well, you guys were spearing at night?
Right.
This is probably a week or two ago. And why do you spear gar?
Well, it's fun to chase them out and get them at night.
Well, how do you do it? With lights on the boat?
Yeah, we stand up on the front seat of the boat, and we have a boom hanging over the front end of the boat with lanterns out there, propane lanterns, and a shield over the top of it.
And one guy's in the front with the spear,
Yeah.
which was you in this case.
Yeah.
Riley, you were in the back steering? Is
Right,
it-
right.
that-
Operating the boat.
You tell me that's kind of a tough job.
Well, it is. To keep up with a gar like this, they're very quick. Once the light hits their eyes, they just take right off into the water.
Oh, that must be a real adventure. Well, Ned, people are going to wonder, you know, they're going to take their kids swimming this weekend, Memorial Day weekend, and I've just told them that this is a fairly common fish in many lakes in the state.
Yes, it is.
Anything to be afraid of?
No, absolutely nothing to be afraid of. They strictly are a predator of small fish.
The meanest thing about them is their looks.
Is their looks, right?
Okay, well, let's talk a little bit about, this is like an alligator. I mean, it's bony. All the way, the head is bony.
The entire head is made up of bony plates. When you get back over the body, it's covered by a scale that we call a ganoid scale, and it's a very heavy armored type of scale. And they're overlapping, and they're just like armor, and very difficult to penetrate. And they're a very primitive fish, and probably they have survived because of just this type of apparatus. They grow about 18, 20 inches in the first year, and once they get that size, about the only predator they have is man.
Okay, this is how long, Ken?
52 inches long.
And it weighs
15 pounds.
15 pounds. Is this as big as they get, Ned?
No, they'll get up about 5 feet.
Wow, you suppose we have 5-foot
Oh, I'm
gars in our Michigan lakes?
Perhaps.
How would somebody go about catching one on hook and line?
Well, there's several methods that, like I said, it's difficult to take a hook, but so some of the methods that they use is they use a snare, piano wire snare with like a loop on the end, and when the gar sticks his snoot through on the bait, and the loop closes on holds the mouth shut. The other way is to take frayed nylon and fray it, and the nylon's made up of small filaments, and when they
Get it
take
caught
the
in their
bait,
teeth?
they get it caught in their teeth. And,
There you can see that nylon would get caught in there and you'd have them.
right.
Huh, well, that's a
They're-
great fish. Well, one warning with this fish. I guess you can eat them, but the eggs?
The fish is fine, but the eggs are poisonous, toxic to vertebrates, which we, of course, are.
Okay, well, here they are, Riley Sumner and Ken Bauer from Chelsea. The state record gar, not a gar pike, a long-nosed gar. Congratulations, guys. You're in the record book now.
Okay.
Thanks a lot. And here we are with a cute, fuzzy little bird, a 1-month-old red-tailed hawk. What could be cuter? Jim Sikarsky, you're the animal doctor, the veterinarian at MSU. I want to congratulate you on all the articles I've seen on you and the work you've done with wildlife over the years.
Oh, it doesn't have any calcium in it, for one thing. And the bird, because it's young, is growing real right story. This is a baby redtail that some kid to make a pet out of it. And they fed it only liver, and liver is not a complete balanced diet.
Why not?
Oh, it doesn't have any calcium in it, for one thing. And the bird, because it's young, is growing real rapidly and needs a lot of calcium. And you can see on the bird's legs here how crooked they are. The
Boy, they
bones
sure
didn't
are.
develop normally. We have a splint on the one leg, but you can see how crooked the other leg is. There isn't much we can do for that. We're hoping that the weight of the legs and hanging them in a sling like that will help them grow and straighten out.
He doesn't seem to have any strength at all in his talons.
No,
He isn't grabbing at all.
Yeah, he has some strength. That's what that little piece of wood down there is for
So
him
he
to
can
grab
grab
onto
onto
and
it.
exercise.
And his wings and his ribs and everything.
Right, everything is decalcified. You can see on the x-rays here that this is what his bones look like. They should be straight. You can see how crooked. They're just like ribbons.
Oh, his
There's no calcium. He
Yeah.
can't support his weight at all. This is what a normal bone looks like. This is a red-tailed hawk that was unfortunately shot by someone. You can see the lead fragments here.
Yeah,
But
it just has about 3 basic parts to the
yeah,
wing instead of
nice,
being folded.
normal, healthy, solid bone. This is what those other bones should look like.
Yeah, let's mention here, from this X-ray, the bird was shot. It is illegal to shoot any bird of prey.
Right.
It's a federal law, I believe.
Sure it is.
And because they do a lot of good, they eat a lot of rodents.
Right.
And really aren't a concern to hunters or game animals.
They might eat a little bit of game, too, but, geez, I think they're entitled. They were there first.
Sure, well, I'm going to take this X-ray machine down here. Let's get over here and talk about feeding.
Well, what you would normally feed and what they would eat in the wild would be pieces of rodents. And this here is part of a baby rat, and this is a commercial diet called bird of prey diet. We're going to see if he'll eat a little part of a baby rat here for us.
He doesn't have a lot of strength, and I don't imagine
He's pretty weak, but with a little bit of help, I think we can get him to eat here. He's kind of...
poor little thing. Well, of course, all of you were wondering out there, is Dr. Sikarsky going to perform a miracle here and bring this bird back to health? What are the chances, Jim?
Oh, he's got about a 1 in 10 chance of making it, I think. But he's not suffering greatly, and we're going to give him our best shot.
Boy, this is a red-tailed hawk, and you can see these would be the tail feathers.
Right.
coming
They won't
back.
be red the first year, but the second year they'll be red. And this is normal feather development. They grow out in a sheath like this, and after they get done growing, the sheath falls off like dandruff. You can see on the top of his head here how he's kind of scruffy looking. Looks like a porcupine, but these
Yeah.
are soft feathers coming out. And
How long would it be, if he were to develop naturally, that he would be out of the nest flying around?
oh, it would be probably 2 months. He's about halfway there. You can see the wing feathers are coming out. We have the wings taped up here so that they'll
Okay.
grow in a normal position, but he's trying to exercise and struggling here.
Well, even though it isn't a happy story, you wanted to bring it on the show here
Right.
to make the point that it's not wise to try to take any wildlife baby. I imagine all types of wildlife species have different diets,
Sure.
different behaviors, things that people aren't aware of. Well, for aspiring falconers, there are only 12 registered falconers in the state, and we're going to get into this one of these days, Jim, about what's required in the sport of falconry. But this is not the way to go about it, and I might remind everyone it's illegal to take birds like this out of the nest. Well, Jim, best of luck with this.
Thanks,
We're going to
Fran.
keep tabs on it. You're a fisherman?
Yes, I'm going fishing this week.
Okay, bass season's opening up, and right now we're going to go to a little film where Stan Livense gives us some tips for opening day bass. There he is, Mr. Michigan Fishing to many people. Over quite a few years, he's worked with the DNR as a fisheries biologist with the Michigan Travel Bureau, dispensing a lot of good fishing information. Stan Livense, he just retired last Friday. But he's giving us some tips on bass fishing. He says, now, opening day in the early spring, watch the weather, take along lots of clothes, jackets for your feet. You might want to wear tennis shoes, some rubber-soled shoes so you don't make noise in the boat. Pair of Polaroid sunglasses is a good idea. It's very useful in steelhead fishing, also in bass fishing, because you want to look for the cover, the obstructions, logs along the shore. A good bass lake is one that has a mud bottom, at least for largemouth bass, weeds, and a fringe of lily pads around the lake is a tip-off that this would be some good bass cover. Now, you're going to want to look at it one of two ways. You're either going to want to go on the surface, or you're going to go underwater with your lure. And generally speaking, surface fishing like this is good in the evening and early morning. Of course, a day like this, when it's raining, you might want to consider when it's a little bit darker. And it's really a lot of fun because the bass really explode hitting a surface lure. But during the day, you might want to go to something like a spinner bait, a jig, underwater plug, and cast that up around the obstructions. The bass will tend to stay down a little more during the day, head for a little deeper water. But at this time of year, We do know that the water temperature is going to be pretty reasonable on the shoals. The shoals, the shallow water portions of the lake around the edges. So the bass will be there as long as the water temperatures are comfortable to them. So that's why spring bass fishing is good. Also, that's just around the spawning time. They'll be hanging around their spawning beds. Now, we're generally talking of depths of 10 feet or less. It's primarily where you're going to find the bass. So you're going to look up under maybe an old log, up under the lily pads and the dense weeds along the edge. You cast where you feel the bass are going to hear or see the lure, which is up in these shallow water areas. Of course, with the import of the spinning tackle, it makes it easy for a lot of people, but Stan is well versed in using casting rods, casting reels. In the old days, it used to take quite a bit to master them, but nowadays they've improved them, and they're almost as easy to use as our spin cast reels, which Stan is using right here. And the spin cast allows a lot of people to get into fishing. It's an easier way to cast, but you can get some real pinpoint accuracy with the bait casting outfits. And sometimes that accuracy is important when you're casting up around the obstructions. Now, it's most common for fishermen who like to switch baits and try different things to tie in a swivel snap and interchange the lures with a swivel snap. Some of the purists, though, if you have time and you know your knots, you can tie directly under the line, and that's regarded as a little more effective. And you're going to want to use a line, maybe 12-pound test. Some people use more. The reels today allow you to use that, and the big advantage is when you get hooked onto a lily pad or weeds, you can break it free, pull loose. At least the bulrush or a lily pad will break first and not your line. And the largemouth bass are active pretty much throughout the day. It's not as urgent to get out in the early morning and late evening in the spring, especially this weekend, like it will be when we hit July. Of course, bass, largemouth bass, you might not think are a member of the sunfish family, but they are. They're a large sunfish. And they gain an interesting catchable size in about 3 or 4 years, sometimes as early as 3. And a lot depends on the abundance of fish in a lake, or the amount of competition from vegetation. Believe it or not, too many weeds in the lake can actually inhibit the growth on some of these fish. Largemouth bass lives about 6 years. Some will go as much as 8 or 10, but most of them don't live much past 6 years, and they feed on a variety of things. They're not all minnow feeders that a lot of people think they are. Crayfish are a big part of their diet, as well as some of the insects. So lures that crawl across the bottom are effective because they imitate a crayfish or some of the insects. Of course, you want to be satisfied with a reasonable size, but one thing about bass fishing is if the fishing is good, you're going to get lots of action, lots of activity. And you don't like to have too long between strikes. A bass is a good fighter, a good jumper, a good challenge, real gamey, and you might get a stringer of fish like this weekend in Michigan Outdoors. You're going to be out there, right, Ed?
Yeah, that sure makes me excited, Fred.
Those were nice fish, but you know, there are bigger bass than that are caught opening weekend. We have some right now in our trophy report. Here's a largemouth bass. Don Privashevsky from Bay City is mighty proud to hold up nearly 7 pounds of fight. It smacked a hula popper at 8:30 in the morning. Most of the big bass seem to be caught either early in the morning or in the evening, unlike northern pike. Fife Lake was where Don hit this jackpot on July 3rd. Smallmouths don't grow as large as largemouths, but this one is a monster bronzeback caught in Intermediate Lake in Antrim County by Ron Brugger from Taylor. Here's 5.5 pounds of smallmouth that hit at 8 a.m. on September 13th, falling for a 1/4 ounce jig and pig combination. To look at the markings on this bass, the predominant black stripe down the side, you'd think it was a largemouth, but judging from the mouth, it is a smallmouth. This size is huge for a smallmouth. 7.5 pounds caught by Mark Schweitzer from Mount Pleasant on Isabella County's Coldwater Lake. This one last May 29th at 5 p.m. The magic lure, a doll-top secret. On the day after opening day last year, Ron Vachon from Waterford hit pay dirt at 7 p.m., a standard time for big bass to cruise the shallows. This 6.5 pounder went for a Rapala in Oscoda County's second lake. The big smallmouth seem to come from the northern areas where the water is cold and clear with gravel bottoms for spawning. Here's a 5.5 pounder that made the record book on opening day last year. Norval Polson from Hinsdale, Illinois took it still fishing with a minnow, early, 6 a.m. to be exact. Last year's big opening day largemouth was caught by Jim Doctor from Holland. Fishing Hess Lake in Newaygo County, the old reliable beetle spin put nearly 7 pounds of lunker on the stringer. The bewitching hour was 7:30 in the morning. If you get up early and catch a master angler largemouth, send a picture to the DNR along with your application, and you too, like Jim Doctor, might be our Michigan Outdoors Master Angler of the Week. You going to be out there early yet?
I sure am, Fred.
Well, now, if you don't get one big enough for our trophy report, you going to cook it up?
Sure.
How?
Filet and fry.
That's a good way to do with bass, good way to do it. And I have a recipe right now. For some of you hunters who might have some pheasant in the freezer from last fall, maybe got one at a preserve or put and take, it's called rice-baked pheasant, Ed. Great recipe. Watch this. Of course, we're going to start out with the pheasant. Pheasant's much the same size as a chicken, and so we're going to cut it up, quarter it. Now, I actually do a little more than quartering it. I cut the thighs apart from the legs. There's a lot of tendons. You know, game meat, Ed, tastes great. You know, it tastes great if you cook it properly. It doesn't taste the same as our commercial, you know, chickens and so on. It isn't, I hate to say chicken is bland, but the wild game tends to have a few more tendons, ligaments and so on, and connecting tissue. So you want to cook it generally with a moist method of cookery, braising it, putting it in the oven, baking it, something that'll, you know, tenderize it a little bit. But that's the pheasant. Cut it up just into serving-sized pieces. The ingredients we're going to use, you need a part of a stick of butter. We're going to take some dried onion soup mix, some rice, about a cup or so of rice, some of the French fried onion rings you can buy just canned, some chicken soup, a can of cream of chicken soup. We're going to want to put this in a casserole dish. We're going to add some milk to this too, and all of this will go together. It'll tenderize that pheasant and add a lot of flavor to it. Of course, I'd really recommend a cream of pheasant soup if you can find it.
It's hard to find though, Fred.
Very, very difficult. First step, take the butter and grease the inside of the baking dish all the way around the edge. Reason is we're going to want to put the onion soup all around the edge on the inside. This is what the instructions call for in the recipe. It's great, so I don't find any reason to dispute it. I suppose you could just dump it in the bottom, but adds a little flavor, putting it up around the sides like that. That's the dry onion soup mix, and then the rice goes right on the bottom, a bed of rice. You could use wild rice. I'm sure that would add some taste, some brown rice, but white rice is fine. It's not pre-cooked, just as it comes from the box. And then you arrange the pheasants around the bottom. Try to make them as flat as possible because we're going to cover this with the cream of chicken soup. The soup, we're going to put it in a mixing bowl first, Ed. You don't dump it right onto in the casserole dish. Mix it up just like the instructions call for, you know, making a couple servings of soup. Add a can of milk. Stir it around, make sure it's mixed so you have a, you know, a good consistency of mixture, and pour this over the top of the pheasant. Once again, we've buttered the inside of the casserole dish. We have the dry onion soup mix. There's rice on the bottom, pheasant pieces on top of that with milk and a can of cream of chicken soup. Pop it in the oven about 350 degrees for about an hour and 15 minutes. Now that's going to tenderize that and put some moisture in it and really give it a good flavor. Taking it out, you're going to want to use hot pads. Now, being a cautious hunter, I always like to have a blaze orange, you know, hot mitt for use in deer camp. Try to obey the regulations, Ed.
And it's good that you do, Fred.
Oh, yes. I've never even had anybody shoot at me in the kitchen. Sure, it's because I'm wearing my protective blaze orange mitt. There it is, fresh out of the oven. You notice a lot of that soup is evaporated. Of course, we keep the lid on. You want to put it in the casserole dish with the lid on. Try to, you know, sort of roast it, braise it, steam it in there. 15 minutes before the end, it's already been in an hour and 15 minutes. Take it out, put the onion rings on top, put it back in for 15 minutes, and I tell you, you can lick your lips and prepare for a fantastic meal. Here it comes. I try to dress for an occasion like this.
And you do well.
Next time I'm not going to shave off my mustache, though. It wasn't worth that. But there it is, rice-baked pheasant. What a dish. You could use this with chicken if you want this weekend, if you don't have pheasant around, but keep this recipe in mind. It's a great one. Well, Ed, If you don't, if you're not bass fishing this weekend, or, you know, there's a lot of activities to do coming up, people might want to plan their calendars. You
Right.
got some advice for them?
I've got a lot of fun things to do right here on the outdoor calendar. Saturday opens bass season, both smallmouth and largemouth throughout most of the state. This is always an exciting time for Michigan fishermen who are out on the lake at the break of dawn opening day. And we'll be waiting for all of you master anglers to let us know that you pulled in one of those big lunkers so we can put you in front of the cameras right here on Michigan Outdoors. June 5th and 6th, some fishing action will take place on Lake St. Clair when the Michigan-Ontario Muskie Club holds its first tournament of the year. $2,000 in prizes will be awarded to the top 5 anglers. Entrants must be registered with the club 10 days prior to the event. In recognition of sport fishing's growing popularity as a recreational activity, the American Fishing Tackle Manufacturers Association has declared June 7th through the 13th National Fishing Week, and their slogan, "Take a Kid Fishing," is a point we here at Michigan Outdoors think everyone should consider. Mark June 18th through the 20th on your calendar for Anderson Archery's famous International Bow Hunters Clinic. The Michigan Outdoors cameras will be there to cover personalities like Fred Bear and Tom Jennings, the special archery clinics, and of course, an event not to be missed is the world's fastest bow contest. This will be an action-packed weekend in Grand Ledge. And on July 9th through the 11th, the International Wildlife Foundation will present its 3rd annual Wildlife Film Festival at the Hyatt Regency in Dearborn. Our own Fred Trost is the head judge at the event, and he tells me the films are spectacular. At the festival, you can view many of the films and meet their producers. What an event. If you have any questions on any of these activities, you can get more information by calling the MUCC at 517-371-1041.
And for our weekend forecast, I have Emil Dean on the phone, a charter captain from South Haven. Emil, what's this I hear about the hot salmon fishing?
What it's all about? It's never been so hot.
Never?
No, we got better fishing now we've ever had in our lives here. We've got more salmon than we've ever had at this time of year.
Well, how big are these Chinooks running right now?
So most of the kings are running from 12 from 4 to 12 pounds.
Oh, that's good.
And of course you get the bigger ones, the 18 to 20 pounders.
Well, Emil, are they catching them all in the early morning?
Well, not necessarily. We get them in the morning, definitely, when you go out, but lately they've been biting all day long.
Well, that sounds pretty good. I'm going to be down there fishing with you tomorrow, Emil. What can I expect?
Well, like tomorrow, if the weather cooperates with you probably could expect your limit. This is, you can't expect this day in and day out, but the way it's been last week or so, it's just, you can't imagine how good it is.
Hey, I am ready. I'll see you right after the show later tonight.
Okay, I'll see you when you get here.
Okay, thanks, Emil. Well, that's going to be a good day. I'll report on that next week. Bill Swegler from the Travel Bureau says this bass season all over the state looks like it's going to be great this weekend, so get out there in Michigan Outdoors and enjoy it.
From the rugged shore and woodlands of the north, its history of copper mines and iron ore, the Great Lakes fisheries. To the farmlands of the southern counties we'll look around again, and all that waits the sportsman in the state of Michigan. Sometimes when the moon brings out the diamonds in the snow, and the stillness of the forest lies encased in Arctic cold, the wind might whisper through the trees, listen if you can, it tells you of the beauty in the state of Michigan.